Good morning, all, and welcome to the Spark User Group Meeting 2025, the Circulation Committee edition. This morning, we have an exciting agenda that was put together by our Circulation Committee Chair, Betty Renzulli, who is the head of circulation at Easton Area Public Library. Thank you, Betty.
Thank you, Kat. Welcome everyone to the Circulation Committee meeting. Well, it's the Circulation User Group meeting. We'll start off by opening the floor to the PAIL staff to see if there's any news. Katie, you would like to share, or Elizabeth, Catherine, anything that you want to share with the group before we get started on our agenda?
I don't think I have any additional updates, just happy to be here.
Great, okay. Well, I will probably be asking everyone to keep an eye on the chat. Catherine, if you could let me know, I'm going to be prompting questions for everyone to answer. So hopefully we can get a good discussion started. I have a PowerPoint presentation that'll take us through all of the key points of this agenda. So why don't we get started on that? So again, I want to welcome everyone. Today, we're going to focus on a topic that is that will directly impact the circulation workflow, and that's resource sharing.
Hey, Betty.
Yes.
Are you sharing your presentation slides right now?
Yes. Are you not seeing that?
No, I'm still just seeing
the agenda.
So,
okay.
So you may, yeah, so maybe go back to the share and share your whole screen.
Okay. So when I say share,
okay.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm doing that would say full screen. Can you see it?
Yes. Yep. That's perfect.
Okay. All right. So here we are. For the libraries that are already participating, this meeting will give you a chance to discuss best practices, troubleshoot common challenges, and learn from each other's experiences. If your library isn't yet participating in resource sharing, you may have questions and concerns about how it will affect your circulation department. Our goal today is to provide real answers and to real challenges that the staff will have, and so they would feel confident handling these procedures. So some of the key topics would be circulation workflows for resource sharing, how materials move between the libraries, managing holds and pull lists, ensuring that requests are filled efficiently, handling damaged and lost items. There will be clear steps that we use for billing and communications between the libraries, and then training staff and educating patrons, making the process seamless for everyone. Throughout the session, I encourage you to share your own experiences and bring up any challenges you've encountered. The goal is to walk away with practical solutions that will help make resource sharing a smooth and successful part of our circulation. Okay, so now I have to see how I'm going to work this. There we go. Circulation workflow for resource sharing. I'm sorry, I have notes here that I'm reading from. I hope you don't mind. I just don't want to forget anything.
No worries.
So one of the biggest concerns for circulation staff when starting resource sharing is understanding how materials move between the libraries. Every system is different, but most will use a combination of in-house delivery routes, courier services, or partnerships with other organizations. So how do items get from one library to another? My next slide shows you what we do here at the Easton Area Public Library. We have a van for the Lehigh Valley Library System, which includes Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. you'll see over here, there's a slide here, which shows different crates we have designated for different libraries, and a cart full of books that they're sorting through to put into these crates. And then on this side, you'll see we have some crates lined up over here. These are the crates that had been delivered to our library, the Easton Library, from Allentown and Bethlehem. We've emptied them out and sorted through them. And so this is one example of how we are sorting through and delivering our items to the libraries. This is a little bit of a flow chart that shows how, let me see if I can move this. Okay, this shows how we send our stuff. This is a flow chart of the multi-district Lehigh Valley and the Pocono resource sharing. So here is the Easton Area Public Library. Here are our district libraries, and here's our branch. This is the Bethlehem Library, their branches, their district libraries. The Allentown doesn't have branches, but they do have district libraries. So when something from this library wants to go to Easton, it goes up through this and across and then down to maybe one of these libraries or one of our branches. Note here that the gray boxes indicate libraries that are not currently resource sharing. Northampton Public Library just got onto Spark. They're not resource sharing yet. Hellertown and Mary Muser do not belong on Spark. Nazareth is an exception. They are a district library through Bethlehem, and they do still receive deliveries from Bethlehem through their district delivery, but Easton is also delivering through our district delivery because of the route passes right by their house, right by their building. So they get from both. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is managing the holds pool list. I'm going to go back one more slide. I'm sorry about that. To this slide. Thank you. So what we talk about here is the delivery method, the dedicated drivers. We also talked about the other thing I want to mention, excuse me, is how Evergreen system determines where the pool items come from. Katie, do you mind mentioning that flow, or Elizabeth? I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah, so the way that we are able to do it in Evergreen is, and Equinox helped us kind of set this up on the back end so that it's really heavily customized, is we are able to tell it what libraries are closest. So I'm more familiar with the examples from my district over here than I am from the Lehigh Valley, but so Evergreen sort of net as it's written wants to see all systems, like if you're within a system, that's closer than going out to another system, but then all systems are kind of, all library systems are kind of on an even playing field. And for us, what we want to do is we want to say, okay, if you're in Easton, say, then Bangor is closer, air quotes, to you than one of the Lehigh Carbon libraries because it doesn't have to go through that second hop. So we wanted it to be, some consortia use just geographical distance, like they geocode the library locations. But like here in the Altoona district, I am only like 15 miles from the library in Ebensburg, and I'm 25 miles from the library in Huntingdon. But the library in Huntingdon is closer because it's in the same district, and so they have more frequent delivery than what they have with the library in Cambria County. So even though they're adjacent counties on both sides, it is closer to go to this one library than this other library. So we worked with Equinox to be able to give it. Elizabeth has this completely banana spreadsheet of how that hierarchy works. So it was fun and interesting to see kind of how folks do it. Just a reminder that if you do change or update your delivery arrangements, please let us know because we'll update them on our end as well.
Okay. I'm not sure what you guys are seeing on your screen right now. Do you still see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, I do not, because I brought up the screen of everybody's face while you were talking, so I could look at you, and now I can't find my screen. I found, yay. So going back to this, the question, how does your circulation team handle moving items? Any concerns about setting up a delivery system? So here we get into the point where I'd like to initiate some chats with everybody. If people are already doing resource sharing, or if they're thinking about it, but they have questions. With each slide, we're going to, ask to open up questions. If you have any tips on how you're handling moving items, you can put that in the chat, which I can't see. So if there is anything, you guys will let me know. Okay. The next slide. We did that and that. Okay. So managing your holds and pull lists. An efficient hold process is critical to resource sharing. Since holds can come from multiple libraries, circulation staff must stay on top of the pull list and the delivery schedule. So here are some practical tips that can streamline your workflow. To check your pull list frequently. Now, this is interesting to me. I'm going off script right now. I come from the school of thought that you pull the pull list as frequently as possible to get the items that are on hold for people off the shelf. And the main reason that I came to this way of doing things was because when somebody comes up to the counter with a book and I go to check it out to them and it's on hold for somebody else, there's a discussion that has to be made there right then and there, because this person came in and pulled it off the shelf. So now I feel my staff's fault for not grabbing it first. She got it before the person who put the hold on was given, we weren't alerted that the person had it on hold. So now I have this thing like, okay, they're in front of me. They have the book. It's on hold. We could probably get it from another library. I'm just going to let them have it and let the hold stay and get filled by another. I don't like that situation. So I'm trying to pull those holds and get them off the shelf before someone else finds them. In a session earlier this week, I think it was the report session, and this wasn't part of the user group, but it was, I think, the new report session. Somebody made a comment about, if you go and you fill your hold every hour, you fill your whole pull list every hour, you're going to be a lending library. And so if the director or the board are like, oh, we're lending out too many things, stop pulling your pull list so often. I don't think that is a good practice. I think we should be pulling our pull list as often as possible and not being so worried about being a lending library.
Well, and Elizabeth, weigh in here, but because it only is going to retarget once every, it's not like, oh, you pulled 20 holds, so you can have more now. Like, it's going to target the things that it's going to target, and it's only going to target one at a time. So it's not like you're going to grab it before somebody else. It's whether you check it once a day or 10 times a day, it's going to be the same number of holds. It's just going to keep things moving in terms of not having, like you were saying, not having those things that you try to check out and it turns out somebody's got them on hold. And you're not going to have the scenario where if someone places, because it will move on at like a rolling 24 hours. So if somebody placed a hold at say somebody placed a hold at 4 p.m. on a day that your library closes at 5. So you didn't grab it on Monday. Okay. If you then don't check your pull list until 4:30 the next day, that hold will have moved on. So you do need, I would say you do need, especially if you're a library that has like staggered hours, you do need to check your pull list multiple times a day. But it won't move on more frequently than 24 hours because you're checking your hold list more often.
Right, very good. So,
It's not like me as a supervisor, which is like, if you're done, you can have more work.
right. Yeah, I think the person, I'm not sure what the person's thought was when they said, you know, the more often you pull your list, you know, the more you're going to be a lending library, because like you said, it's going to be on the list for 24 hours, whether you pulled it or not. So you're
So
not
there
just going to
are
do your pull list once a day. You're going to have to do it multiple times a day. So I
there
just
are
wanted
some
to,
ILSs where when you place a hold, it will put it on multiple pull lists.
oh,
And
okay,
so then you could be like, I'm gonna get those holds. I'm gonna get them. I'm
okay,
gonna fill them.
okay,
So that is not a thing that we even can do in
okay.
Evergreen. And I don't know if it's a thing that anybody really uses in ILSs, but there is, like, I think that's the thought process.
Mhm.
They're gonna be
Right.
grabbing,
Right,
grabbing.
right. And that's not how it works for us.
Exactly.
So checking your pool list frequently is the best practice.
Yeah.
Customizing the view of your pool list is essential, like having the title of the item, obviously the call number so you can find it, where in the library it's going to be. We even use the status because we'll put things on display as a status. And they can still be placed on hold, but we'll need to know that because the location is not changed, the status is changed. So you have to determine what you need to know to find those items and include that when you're picking your columns.
So Betty,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. Colleen
No
says
problem.
in the chat that they do 3 times a day and it works well for them at Southern Lehigh. So I think that's great. I think
That's a good.
early-ish, lunchtime-ish, and before everybody, like before like the, often if you're open in the evening, you have less coverage in the evening, so it can be easier to do it like before the 9 to 5ers go home. But
Yeah.
whatever works for people. The only other thing I would add that has worked for some of the libraries that I've worked with is if your delivery comes at a time that isn't like close to one of your normal pull times, or if you would normally only pull say once a day, if your delivery comes in the middle of the day, try to do it like try to be caught up when the delivery driver is there, because that's just going to maximize the number of things that are going out that day as opposed to the number of things that are going to sit. So for folks who have daily delivery, not as much of a big deal, but a lot of our libraries only have, once or twice a week. So it can be good to just make sure you get absolutely everything into the crates.
We do our pull list first thing in the morning, and then our delivery drivers come, and before they're allowed to leave, we say, you know, don't leave. We have to check the list one more time, and never fails. We got to run back out again. But we don't want them to leave without everything.
Right.
One of the really great things that we have now is this sorting the pickup libraries. This is new with our upgrade. So with the pickup library down here, you can actually sort for, and we have the Monroe, we have Bangor, we have Allentown and Bethlehem. We have a lot of between our districts, the multi-district and all the sharing. We have different drivers going different places. So when the driver's coming, that's going to our district libraries, our list could have, 35 things on it. We just want to get the things that are for him so he doesn't have to continue to wait. So we dial in on him, and maybe out of those 35, 4 of them are for him. We go get those 4, he leaves, then we can go back and do the full list. So it has been very great. Also, shelving location is nice. If we don't want children's items in there, or if we're just looking what's in storage, we're going up to storage, we can dial in on that. So we're really happy to be using the filters. Anyone having any challenges or anticipating any challenges to managing holds if they were to go to resource sharing? I know there are libraries that may be considering it. And if this is something that is holding you back, we can answer questions for you about that today.
Annalise also commented, so Colleen added that at Southern Lehigh, they're first in the day, and so on the delivery route. So that's, you know, like one of the first things they do. And then Annalise from Nazareth, and so she's noting, you know, it does, like, stuff has to route through a couple of places to get to them sometimes. So they do
Right.
check it as often as possible to make sure that everything that can go on in the van goes on the van. She is noting that as a smaller location, their pull list isn't typically all that long.
Oh.
Raise your hand if you've ever printed a pull list that's taller than you are. I'm not tall. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, it's Heather is the same height as I am, so and Brianna, yeah.
Oh
So it
my.
if you're, especially if you're at a hub, so like
Yeah.
if you're those folks are all at, you know, Easton, Allentown, Albright, those are going to be, because they're closest to so many things, those libraries are going to get hit the most, and they also have the largest collection, so it's perfect. But sometimes on Monday morning, man,
Oh, Monday.
it's not a short list. So when I worked in libraries, we didn't have the we sorted it by shelving so we would sort it by shelving location, so we would have to print the whole thing. And at Altoona, adult is on one level and children's is downstairs, so there's a you know, desk on each floor, and staff from those desks would pull the holds. So we would print the giant pull list and then tear it at the break between the adult and children's
And and Katie, do you remember the length of the pull list after the flood? It was
Yeah,
like
that was,
from one end of the upstairs main floor almost to the other.
yeah, yeah. We had some things that have been waiting for a little while. And I think some of those people, we ended up calling them, like, you placed, because Altoona in the very last days of 2020, it was closed. I don't think when did we start doing hold pickups again? April, maybe.
Oh, months
So
later.
for at least 4 months of
Months,
that
yeah.
building being closed. So if it was something that nobody else had, um it was just sitting in that hold queue. And we did a lot, you know, and we have had sessions and have other sessions on managing holds with closures. um but yeah, that was a big one. So it's always an adventure.
So my next slide here, we're going to continue on with the best practices, but let's talk about the transit slip, because once you place that hold, then you'll be having the transit slip to tell you where it's going to go. So let me get to the right page here. Here we go. Okay. So I have here, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Did you all move on to the transit slip now? You can see that? Do you still see the presentation, or do you see a
We're
transit
still
slip?
seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, all right. So then I need to. All right, let me go back and share. You said there was a way I can share my whole screen. Is there
Yeah.
entire screen? I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all seeing the presentation. Now I'm going to click on this document and it should take us to another screen. And you
Yep.
all traveled with me? Okay, so I have samples of transit slips here. So I highlighted the library that printed the transit slip. This is the way we designed our transit slip here at Easton. There include the title of the item, the call number, the barcode, the pickup library, and the date it was sent. So here is an Allentown item. You can tell by, I can tell by the barcode that it's an Allentown item. It was returned to Bethlehem and it's in transit to go to Allentown. So this is what it would look like. The next one I have a sample of is a South Side Bethlehem item. You can tell that because this is where it was checked in and this is the barcode. I looked it up. It's a South Side Bethlehem item. It's in transit to Palmer. That's a branch at Easton. So the item must travel from the Bethlehem South Side branch to the Bethlehem's main branch. This is our workflow where it goes from the branch up to the main branch. And then the Bethlehem it'll go to the Bethlehem main library. Then the Bethlehem main library will get it. They will see the transit slip that says Palmer, and they won't have to scan it or anything. They'll take it out of that crate and they'll put it into the crate that goes to Easton. When it comes to Easton, we will take it out of the Easton crate and we will put it in the Palmer crate. So this is one being a hub. This item wants to go to a branch and it's coming from a branch. So the first branch goes to the hub and then it travels to our hub and then it goes down to our branch. So that was an example of how it travels through. This is an example of an Allentown item that was trapped at Allentown and then set in transit to fill a hold in Easton. So you can say it's transit hold. So this was an Allentown item that had a hold and an Easton patron who wanted it. Lower Macungie item that was returned to Palmer Library. So it was an item that belongs to the Lehigh Carbon District, which travels through Allentown, but it was returned at a Palmer branch, which is a branch of Easton. So it's basically the same as before. It travels up and then over and then back down. So I have a lot of examples here. We don't have to go over every single one, but they're very similar. This one's a good one. This one is a Catasauqua item that was returned to Easton. It's in transit to go back to Catasauqua. So what it has to do is we checked it in. It says it belongs to Catasauqua. We're going to put that in our Allentown crate because Catasauqua is a district library for Allentown. So we do daily deliveries between Allentown and Bethlehem for the Lehigh Valley District. And then anything that's going to Allentown's district also goes into that Allentown crate. So let me get out.
And then sometimes you'll have ones where it's not going home, like it's a Catasauqua item that was checked in at Easton, but it's going to Monroe.
Right, because the next person who wants it on the pull list is not at the home library. Very good, right?
And so I like a couple things I like about your transit slips, and I'd be curious if other people have things that they like about their transit slips, is you have that where it's going, the destination is across the top, right? And so that's nice. And then some libraries have it in like a bit like bold or in a bigger font, so that it's really really clear. Because if the default regular hold and hold transit slips look pretty similar, so if we customize those to have that destination be called out a little bit better, that can really help folks who are sorting. The other thing that I think you guys have, and I know we've done it some of the places that I've been, is to have on your bins a list of what goes in that bin. So like the Easton bin gets a lot of.
You're getting ahead of me here.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Let's get on to the next slide.
Oh, I do have, this is a good question from Natalie in the chat, is, and this was something that I noticed that you redacted in yours, Betty, is patron data on slips. So the default evergreen hold transit slip has patron data. Now, I would say this depends on how whether or not this is, if you want to take the patron data off the whole transit slip, it's easy to do. We'll help you do it. It's never a bad plan to have less patron data floating around on pieces of paper. However, if you are in a situation where your library items are always handled by library staff who are trained in confidentiality, then I would say it's not more of a concern than just, those items being just in the same general like circulation pattern that it goes through. We do have libraries that use either non-library staff to do deliveries like IUs and things like that. And so they want to reduce, just not that those people are going to do anything on purpose, but they're not trained in confidentiality of library records. So it is very easy to remove that patron data, or to like partially anonymize it, so that that's not on those transit slips. So if that's something anybody wants to do, we can definitely help with that. And if you do have a public hold shelf and you want semi-anonymized public hold shelf regular hold slips, we can do that as well. Elizabeth?
I just wanted to share that I don't see anyone from Lackawanna County. They use color-coded bookmarks essentially. They have where it's going and at the top, and then at the bottom or somewhere else on the slip where it's coming from. Oh, there's Brianna. They're laminated. They're really nice. Every library is a different color, so like there's no patron info on it at all. So those are really nice. I honestly prefer those than those slips. There's no patron data. There's no info about why it's going from point A to point B. So
Because you got to check
yeah.
it in when it gets there anyway. So it's not.
Well, we don't necessarily do that. If it is going to one of our other libraries, we take it out of one crate and put it in another. We're not checking that in. We just
Yes, I meant when it gets to the ultimate. Yeah, when it gets to the ultimate
get to where you're
destination,
going, then you're going to scan it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's just traveling from one to the other, that one would be an in-transit slip that wouldn't have a name on it anyway.
No.
Not necessarily. Depends on how they're configured.
True. Okay.
Yeah, so I think in general, it's a good practice not to have patron info on any of that stuff unless you absolutely have to. So
Okay, thank you.
that's just my opinion, and Natalie's as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So and the laminated ones are
Yeah, you're reusing them, so you're
I
not
have
like.
some I could show you. I just made poor Jillian sitting next to me go get some for you. They're colorful. So like for instance, Abington is green. So at the top it says Abington Community Library in transit, and then at the bottom it has us so that we know. Or like for instance, this one's from Nancy K. So like it'll say it's going back to Nancy K, or like Carbondale's is orange, and then it'll say Scranton. So like we got all kinds of colors.
And in Southern Lehigh, they sort them and stack them together. So if you have things going to the same library, then you only have to do one of the colored slips, and then you attach them together.
Yeah, we bundle as most we can, and then some libraries will just like do whole bins and then just stick one of these slips on top of the bin so that they know just everything in this bin is going to this library, especially for the bigger ones.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
we like them. They're very efficient.
Yeah.
I was quite confused the first time one got put in a book that was like not removed from a book that was coming to Altoona from one of the Lackawanna County libraries. I was like, what is this? But I just put it in the next box and sent it back but yeah, there's lots of items. I like the other thing that I like about the laminated slips is the ones that you guys have is they're big enough that they don't fall out of the books. Like the transit slips, if you put them in the book, they don't usually stay. And the laminated ones are like a little bit more grippy and they stay in the book. And then you're not taping.
Yeah.
And we're not,
yes.
I will not talk about tape. And
yeah,
I'm gonna talk about that's off the table. But if you can reduce the amount that you're taping, that's not a bad thing.
Well, I love all these ideas. Thank you. Thank you. So here we are with handling damaged items in resource sharing. I know I promised you that other slide. It's coming. So handling damaged and lost items can be a major concern in resource sharing. And at Eastern Area Public Library, we developed a streamlined process to manage these issues effectively and ensure proper billing, especially when the item belongs to other libraries. So if when we get an item and appears to be damaged, right away, we'll check the item status and see if there was a note that this item was already in poor condition. If there is no note, it's going on in transit to fill a hold, we'll cancel that transit and then we'll mark the item damaged. And we can apply the charges to the patron's account. I have an item charge slip here that we keep with the item to document the charges and indicate where we're holding it and all of that stuff. When we're dealing with fines and replacement charges from other libraries, you need to ensure that you're following what you agreed upon with your consortium that you're sharing resources with. These are your patrons, so you want to communicate with them clearly about the charges that could arise for items that are owned by other libraries. This is still an ongoing problem that we're trying to work out with our consortium libraries because, you know, we're getting things in the delivery that are damaged and they're coming to fill a hold, and we don't want them to actually go out to our patron to fill the hold or even travel to one of our district libraries to fill the hold if the item is damaged and it hasn't been noted, especially if it is in a condition that it can circulate. So that's why we would cancel the hold, change it to damage, and send it back to the owning library or the library that last circulated it so that the person who had it last can then be notified. When we take payments for items that were damaged or lost on our patron's card that belong to another library, we'll take those payments, and we have a report that I believe Elizabeth built for our district consultant to keep track of. And then the business manager will then send a check to those libraries at the end of each month for any replacement charges. Any processes that any libraries are following that to handle damaged items between libraries? If you could share what you're doing, this is a part that is, I think, the most difficult for our resource sharing to get on an agreement as how we will handle these moving forward. So any ideas people have, we would love to hear that. So moving on to training the staff on hold workflows. So one of the biggest hurdles the libraries face when implementing resource sharing is staff training and patron awareness. If patrons don't understand that they can request items from other libraries, or if staff aren't confident in managing those requests, resource sharing won't reach its full potential.
Betty, can we pause for a moment?
Yes.
There's some comments in the chat.
Oh, good.
Colleen,
Thank
yeah,
you. I can't see the chat, so.
Colleen shared that when their blue bin arrives, they look at the materials and kind of evaluate if they should be, if they arrive damaged and it can still be circulated, they'll put a temporary item alert to the normal check-in, check-out, so that when it is returned to the owning library, they are aware that the book arrived to them in that condition, which is good. Everyone can place item alerts on those types of item alerts on items, regardless of who owns it. So that's very helpful. Nicole says their workflow is not very official, but they tend to put a sticky note on the item that it arrived damaged either before going out to a patron, or they will retarget the hold if it's that badly damaged, and they send it back with a note. Troy is in the Berks County library system, and they only allow the owning library to add a charge for a damaged item. Ultimately, it is their call. They will send items back to the owning library if they feel the condition is unacceptable and add a note that they received it in that condition. And they run a report that shows payments where the payments were made by location that did not include the item. Wait, sorry. The only payments that were made at locations that did not own the item twice a year to cut down on time spending, signing checks and mailing them. So frequencies of those reports, no problem. I was like, what? They won something. Yeah, so I think the frequency definitely depends on your agreement. And then always you have folks who, depending on if you allow refunds if they pay for things that they've paid for, lost and paid for. So having, like Betty said, having that mutually agreed upon setup is important.
We're going to be meeting the consortium group that we have created here with our multi-district libraries. We're going to be meeting on Thursday. And I think this is going to be a part of it because everybody has their own way that they want to handle the damage and loss. And we can all have different ways as long as we all know what each other is doing. Because, you know, this happens. It happened yesterday. We got a book in the delivery that's to be filling a hole and it's damaged. And so we have to determine how we're going to take care of damaged items from other libraries. And I think that can be the sticky part that keeps people away from resource sharing. So I hope that that we're not scaring you with any of this. It can be done. You just have to work together with your resource sharing libraries to come to an agreement as to how you're going to handle them. And again, it can be different at each library as long as you know what that library wants. You're going to follow that procedure so that everybody is informed when they're getting things. What's happening is, you know, we have these people that are other libraries patrons that are claiming that our item was damaged when they got it. And we're pretty sure it wasn't damaged when they got it. So notes, alerts, messages, that's all helpful. Going back to the presentation here. Are you all seeing the screen of the presentation now? Training staff and educating patrons.
Yep.
Okay. So clear communication with the patrons, signage, we've done bookmarks for the staff to hand out. Training our staff. This is where I said I had the next slide showing that we have our crates lined up against this wall. Above the Allentown crates is this sign that says all the names of the Allentown libraries and the codes. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. So we look at the slip, the transit slip, and it tells us what library, and we know if it goes in the Allentown crate, if the library appears on this transit slip, that is one of these libraries, then it would go in the Bethlehem crate, and the yellow crate we use for our district libraries. And here's the list of all of the district libraries. So we have these all marked for our staff. So when they're sorting through things, they're looking at the slip, and the slip says what library it goes to, and they know which bin to put it in. Here you see the district library bin that was in the previous picture. We'll empty that bin onto a cart along with all of the deliveries coming from Allentown and Bethlehem and Palmer onto this cart that are going to our district libraries. And then we have bins in a different part of the library in the ILL department where this cart goes to and gets then sorted into these bins. So this picture before, you would see the bins that we keep downstairs, and this district bin then gets sorted into these up here in the interlibrary loan department. So this is how we train the staff. And just recapping, you need to, think about the workflows, how you'll grab your holds, what you'll do with your damaged or lost items, and how you'll train your staff to know where to put things and the public to know that they can do this resource sharing. I wanted to come out of this 1 minute to share what am I want to share one more thing with you guys, and that is here we have a patron that has an item out. We were talking about having items, you know, that may be damaged, and I wanted to show you this. When you have items out, you can mark the item damaged from here. Also, in an item status field, you can right click it, and then instead of editing items, you would use the mark item damaged from here. We had a little bit of a problem finding that at first because we were used to editing items, and instead we couldn't edit someone else's item, and it was shown to us that we need to mark the item damage. So I'm sorry, I kind of went off topic there, but I had forgotten to show you that part, and I wanted to show you that you cannot change someone else's record, but you can mark it as something, and that was the way that we would proceed with that. And then my last screen here is our posting that we posted to social media when we first went to our resource sharing that we have now. And it states that they had over 1.4 million and counting items at their access through our resource sharing. Oh, there is one other thing that I think is beneficial, and that is when you're searching, a new feature we have when you're searching is the Spark library, this group library. We can now search through the group. Am I not, and because this needs to be.
Yeah, you have to set it to one of
Can
the
you-
participants. So set it to like LVLS.
Yes, right. So now I can see my multi-district Lehigh Valley group here, and so we can search through that. So that is a very helpful, having the multi-district. And on the patrons side, in the catalog, I believe there's a way they can scope it as well. Is that right? Through here?
Yep.
We have our Lehigh Valley libraries, and we have our multi-district Lehigh Valley. So the patron, you know, we needed to train the patrons to, when they search for things, to change the search library to these others so that they can have the full access to all the library items that we can get for them with this 1.4 million. So it was training the patrons on how to search on their end to find all of those. And before we end, I would love Katie to share with the group something that I had heard you talk about, and that is how the Easton Allentown Bethlehem Multi-District Consortium is pretty high up there amongst the library consortiums in the state. Will you share that with everyone, please?
Yeah, so, and I was just rechecking my math here. So if you look at the effective collection sizes of library systems in Pennsylvania, and the thing is, we're with the 1.4 million items, we're only looking at things that are actually going to transit. We're not looking at like local history collections or things like that. I had said that only Philly Free was bigger. This is technically true, but what I hadn't done is I hadn't combined Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh with the rest of the Allegheny County libraries, because they are in a consortium. So they are also bigger if you do that math. So I am going to, because Jennifer Long asked me about it. And so I literally have the spreadsheet of Pennsylvania Public Library data up right now to do the math and be able to say, okay, this is here's the actual data. So I will do that, and I'll have Kat included in one of our user group
cool.
wrap up messages. But it is, I think that it is the third after Philly Free and Allegheny County. I think that is makes it the third largest effective collection size in the state, but I am going to do the due diligence and
And-
double check my math and not just go off, because I was going off the IMLS database, which lists Carnegie as one library and then all the other libraries in Allegheny County separately, because that's how the public library survey works. So I need to look at the system breakdown to just make sure that I'm not.
Well, we're very proud of what we have here.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing. In
frankly-
any case, it's amazing. It is absolutely the largest resource sharing consortium in Spark in terms of number of items. The Northeast District has you beat for number of counties. So you start looking around for another
Great.
counties. You guys can increase that competition.
Well, it can be done. We've done it here. We're really excited about what we did here. And we think that, you know, if anybody out there is thinking about it, you know, we definitely can help you, you know, work through some of these problems that arise when you start to do something like this. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. We can just open it up to any questions that anyone has, or just openly discuss, you know, how you're doing things at your library. But what I have put together, I have completed sharing with you. So share with me anything that you would like to have added that we didn't speak about.
I do want to add, we did pay for some development so that when you use the library group searching, it will tell you in the staff side and in the patron side how many copies are within that library group. So like in your instance, if you search the multi-district, it would say, you know, 20 out of 20 copies in the multi-district, you know, 10 at Easton, 5 at Palmer, or however you have your
Right.
search set up. So we have that. I think it's still in review. There were like 3 bugs that made it all work. So I think 2 of them got released for 3.15, which we're tentatively scheduling for upgrade in the fall. So hopefully we'll see this in the fall. But yeah, it'll be helpful. It doesn't tell you who owns it, but it does tell you how many copies. So you'll know at least how many are in so maybe you don't own any at Easton, but you'll know there's 5 other copies somewhere else in the group.
Mhm. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I think we can end our session for today. I hope everybody
That's good.
enjoyed the presentation and did get something from it. I'm very happy that we went to the resource sharing. I think that it's been a great, it was hard for our patrons at first. You know, they wanted the Easton book, and we said, well, we can get it from you from Bethlehem. Well, we'll just wait for the Easton book. Well, you don't have to wait for the Easton book. We can get it from you from Bethlehem. Well, I don't want to have to go to Bethlehem. Well, we'll bring it to you here. Oh, but you don't have to go and do that. Well, we're going anyway. Well, if you're going anyway, well, then okay. Now it's like,
place
can you
the
give me
hold.
that
They
Bethlehem book?
They don't care once they get it. They don't care where it goes.
Yeah. Now they're like on board, but like, yeah, you do have it somewhere else, don't you? So yeah, they're all on board now, and they know how to do it, and we love it. Yeah, and I think my staff love when the delivery comes, because, you know, most of us that work in a library just love to sort things and get them in order, and just, you know, so you come with a crate of all kinds of things, and they just, you know, spend that time you know, focused on getting it out of one crate and into the other crate. And some of them actually do get checked in and stay here, you know, so it's when I have to have more staff, you know, I know when the deliveries come, we need to have extra staff working the CERT desk. And that is an issue with some libraries that are smaller and don't have the extra staff. If they end up doing resource sharing, who's going to sort through everything when they're trying to wait on people? So yeah, there's things to consider. It is a bit more time consuming, but it's a great service for all of the patrons, and the smaller the library, probably the less that you would have. We're a hub, so of course we can get up to 15 crates in one day. But you know, most libraries would maybe just be 1 or 2. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope you have a great work week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Betty.